Welcome to Phase 3, Access. The database exists and holds data. Now the question is who's allowed to use it, and what exactly they can do. This is security, and here's some good news. Security questions are common and genuinely easy to score well on, as long as you lead with the right distinctions. There are really just a few must-know pieces: the difference between a user and a schema, the split between system and object privileges, what roles are for, and the principle of least privilege. Nail those and you'll handle the security portion of any interview with confidence. Let's build them up cleanly. First, a distinction people blur: users versus schemas. A user is an account that can connect to the database, a login with a password. A schema is the collection of objects that user owns, their tables, indexes, views, and so on. In everyday speech, these two words get used almost interchangeably, and that's because when you create a user, Oracle automatically creates a schema of the same name for them. But the precise statement, the one that shows you actually understand it, is this: a user is the login, and the schema is what they own. So if an interviewer asks whether a user and a schema are the same thing, you say closely related, created together, but strictly one is the account and the other is the set of objects it owns. Let's create one. You use create user and you give it three things: a password, a default table space where its objects will live, that's the Chapter 8 connection, and notice I pointed it at users, not system, and optionally a quota that caps how much space it can consume in that table space. Now here's a detail that trips up beginners and makes a nice interview moment. A freshly created user cannot even log in yet. Creating the account doesn't grant the right to connect. You have to grant it create session first. And create session is our perfect bridge into the next idea, because it's an example of a privilege, and privileges come in two distinct flavors that you must be able to tell apart. This is the distinction to lead with, because it's the heart of Oracle security. There are two kinds of privileges. A system privilege is the right to perform an action on the database in general, like create session, the right to log in at all, or create table, or create user. An object privilege is the right to perform an action on a specific named object, like select on the HR.employees table, or utways on one particular table. Both are granted with the grant command and taken away with revo. Lead with this split in any security question and you immediately sound organized. And there's a dead simple test to classify any privilege which is worth its own moment. Here's the 1-second test to classify any privilege on the spot. Ask yourself, is this privilege about a specific named object? If yes, like select on HR.employees, where there's an actual object named, it's an object privilege. If it's a general capability that isn't tied to any one object, like create table, the ability to create tables in general, it's a system privilege. That's the entire test. Named object means object privilege. General capability means system privilege. If an interviewer throws a privilege at you and asks which kind it is, run that test in your head and you'll get it right every time. It's a small thing, but answering instantly and correctly signals real fluency. Now, granting privileges one at a time to a whole team of users is tedious and error-prone. Miss one grant and someone's app breaks. Forget to revoke and you've got a security hole. Roles fix this. A role is a named bundle of privileges that you grant as a single unit. You create the role once, grant it a whole set of privileges, and then grant that role to whichever users need it. The real payoff comes later. When the required privileges change, you adjust the role in one place, and every user who has that role is updated automatically. So the answer to how do you manage privileges for a team is almost always the same one word: roles. That's exactly what interviewers are listening for on that question. Oracle ships with some predefined roles to save you time, Connect for basic connection level rights, and DBA, the all-powerful one, among others. And the DBA role is a genuine trap. It's incredibly tempting. A developer hits a permissions error, and the quick fix is to just grant them DBA and move on. But granting the all-powerful DBA role casually is a classic security mistake. You've now given someone the keys to the entire database to solve a problem that needed one specific privilege. So if an interviewer describes that scenario, the red flag to name is reaching for DBA. The right move is to create a purpose-built role with exactly the privileges required and nothing more. And that instinct has a name, least privilege, which is the through line of this whole chapter. Some privileges are simply too powerful to hand out through ordinary grant, so Oracle treats them specially. SYSDBA gives full administrative control, including the ability to start up and shut down the database. That's the Chapter 5 connection. SYSOPER gives a more limited operational set, start and stop, basic operations, but not full access to the data. And then there's SYSBACKUP, which was created specifically so that backup operators can do their RMAN work without holding full SYSDBA power. That last one is a gem to mention because bringing up SYSBACKUP unprompted quietly signals that you think in terms of least privilege. You give the backup person exactly backup rights, not God mode. It's a small detail that makes you sound senior, and it ties straight into Chapter 14. Here's the unifying idea behind everything in this chapter, and it's a phrase worth saying out loud in an interview. Least privilege. Give each account exactly the rights it needs to do its job, and nothing more. Everything we've covered is just how you put that principle into practice. You use roles to make least privilege manageable at scale. You avoid handing out the DBA role, and you use purpose-built privileges like SYSBACKUP for narrow jobs instead of overgranting. The reason this matters so much is that interviewers value candidates who treat security as a discipline, a way of thinking, rather than just a set of grant commands to memorize. So whenever a security question comes up, anchor your answer in least privilege, and you'll sound like someone who actually protects data for a living. One more angle to round this out, the multi-tenant one, straight from Chapter 2. Just like users, roles and privileges also come in common and local varieties. A common user, role, or privilege spans the whole CDB. It exists in the root and every PDB. And remember, common usernames start with C##. A local one exists in just a single PDB. The practical rule is exactly what you'd expect. Application accounts are normally local, living inside the one PDB that runs their app, while administrative accounts that need to manage the entire container are common. So when you're asked about users in a multi-tenant world, layer this on top. Same privilege concepts, but now with a common versus local scope. It shows you can apply security thinking to modern 19C architecture. Let's audit access live. Oracle exposes the whole security picture through the DBA views. DBA users list the accounts and their default table spaces. DBA syspriv shows which system privileges a user has. Here I've filtered to Sales App. DBA tab priv shows object grants, who can do what to which specific tables. And DBA roles privs shows who has been granted which roles. There's also DBA roles listing the roles themselves. Together, these are your audit toolkit. If a security review asks who can access the payroll table or who has DBA, you answer it with a couple of queries against these views. Being able to name the right view for each question, accounts, system privs, object privs, role assignments, is exactly the practical fluency that lands well. These all return in Chapter 17. Let's lock it in. A user is the login. A schema is the set of objects it owns. Privileges split two ways. A system privilege is a general capability. An object privilege acts on a named object, and the test is whether it names a specific object. Roles bundle privileges and are the answer to managing rights for a team. The administrative privileges are SYSDBA, SYSOPER, and SYSBACKUP, and mentioning SYSBACKUP shows least privilege thinking. And that principle, least privilege, exactly what's needed and nothing more, never hand out DBA casually, ties the whole chapter together. Now that we control who gets in and what they can do, the next question is what they actually build. The tables, indexes, and other objects developers create. That's Chapter 12, Schema Objects.